KHON2, happening now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Howard Deshefsky in the KHON2 newsroom, and we are monitoring breaking news that maybe you're aware of. Hawaii under a tsunami watch this morning and into the afternoon now. After a magnitude 8.1 earthquake in the South Pacific, it's off what's called the Kermadec Islands of the region of New Zealand. Again, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake. We could also tell you there have been several aftershocks throughout the entire Pacific region this afternoon. Now, rest assured, we've reached out to all the county mayors, the governor, HIEMA, civil defense. We're going to bring you more about that in a moment. But first, we want to get right to our two meteorologists, Justin Cruz and Kelly Simek, who join us. Again, right now, we're under a watch. From there, it goes to an advisory and then to a warning should it be imminent. For them to explain exactly what that means, I'm going to turn it over to Justin and Kelly now, guys.
All right, thank you very much, Howard. Yeah, Justin Cruz here, Kelly Simek. We've been actually watching this earthquake and all these series of earthquakes throughout the course of the morning. We do want to get to the very latest, and then we'll kind of explain big picture of what was going on during the morning shows. Kelly, we had that earthquake initially, about what time, and the initial magnitude was 8.0, right?
That's right. The initial estimate from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, 8.0. They did update that with their second advisory, now to an 8.1. So they were pretty close. And now we're continuing to track what could potentially be a tsunami energy that's headed our way. Now, what this means, a watch is, we really don't know what's going to happen yet. It's still too early to tell, so we'll continue to track this. A tsunami, though, may have been generated, and because of that, they are continuing to track the data, and we're going to be finding out if anything was generated. Now, if we do see any tsunami waves headed our way, the earliest arrival of the first wave is expected to be at 4:35 this morning. Now, this is just off of New Zealand, about 100, close to 150 miles just to the northeast of New Zealand. A very powerful earthquake, and we did see multiple aftershocks, which were quite strong as well through the region. Earlier, there was an initial tsunami warning that was issued for New Zealand, where all of the residents were urged to evacuate their homes if they were in those tsunami evacuation zones. That was actually fairly quickly dropped. Yeah. But we do still have that watch in place for us here.
They actually activated their sirens just in case, as a precaution. But because there's also been earthquakes that have been closer to the North Island of New Zealand, thankfully the wave energy didn't cause any damage, but you could clearly see a lot of yellows, and the yellows that you see are actually magnitudes up to about 5 or 6. The reds that you see, this is, you know, in the Tonga region of the South Pacific, those are the bigger quakes that were registered in the 7s and 8s. So things did flare up as far as overall seismic activity in the entire West Pacific, with the biggest one being a revised magnitude 8.1 earthquake. Let's take a bigger picture and we'll see somewhat of the distance from the epicenter to the state of Hawaii. We're talking about 3,700 miles with a wave that is moving very, very fast.
That's right. And just because we are so far away from it, I think people might look at this and say, wow, well, the earthquake happened well away from us. We're in the clear. But that's not the case. This energy can travel, well, one, extremely fast, and a very large distance. So we're not in the clear. We're continuing to get the latest from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, and hopefully we're going to be getting a better idea within the next couple of hours. But with the most recent update, we did hear some numbers from one of the gauges over in Tonga.
That's right. This is the closest gauge near Tonga. And let me get that screen up. I know this is a little bit on the blurry side, but we're talking about a gauge, the red dart gauge that you see, those triangles that you see. There's one near the state of Hawaii, and then there's one just to the north of New Zealand, right below the equator. There's about 2 of them there. Most of these dart buoys are actually lined across the Ring of Fire, but there are a few to the south of the island, specifically for these earthquakes that do happen, so that they can detect to see if there's any sea level rise. And there was some sea level rise. There was a situation near Tonga where the sea level rose about 0.1 feet near one of these buoys. So that's the only one, though. That's the only dart buoy that has so far picked up information that the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has disseminated. So you see on your screen right there, it says 160. Again, I apologize, this is a screenshot, but 160, and then you see those two red dark buoys south of the equator, that pink line. Those are the buoys that are picking up data. And only one, again, only one has picked up some data. So at least we have that. Maybe it might be picked up by a few others, but that's the only thing at this point. And that one indicated quite a modest sea level rise at 0.1 feet. Meaning what? It means, yeah, the ocean rose a little bit. Water was displaced from this earthquake. It was pushed up and away from the earthquake, this water. And there has been some evidence of it, but we're still either not in the clear or still waiting for more data.
That's right. And we're continuing to get updates from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. They're releasing updates at least every hour, so we'll continue to get the latest from them. But that was really the only update, was that one new data point that came in from that buoy. So didn't learn too much from it. That watch, again, is still posted. Still too early to know exactly if we are going to be seeing any of these waves and exactly how potentially high they would be coming through. But again, the earliest that we would be seeing this, it looks like the timing, just judging on how we know how quickly tsunamis do travel and how far away it is from us, where the epicenter of that earthquake was. It's, again, timing-wise, it looks like the earliest tsunami waves would be arriving at about 4:35 this afternoon. So that is the one plus of having such a big earthquake far away. We do have the time to prepare and the time to watch and monitor it, and of course give you guys the latest information and what you need to know.
Do want to bring up areas that did see tsunami waves reaching 0.3 to 1 meters above the tide level, and they include areas such as Australia, Chile, South America, in fact, a lot of South America, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Mexico, New Zealand, Panama, Peru, and then there are these South Pacific islands that saw a little bit of a wave or had tsunami waves reaching 0.3 to 1 meters. And the South Pacific islands include Fiji, French Polynesia, Kosrae, Nauru, Pohnpei, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, and Futuna. So all of those South Pacific islands, obviously because they're near the epicenter, are under the gun, more so than Hawaii, because Hawaii is grouped with a bunch of islands that have less than 0.3 meters above the tide level. So that includes Guam, Hawaii, Japan, Marshall Islands, Midway, Northern Marianas, Palau, Russia, Philippines, Yap, Taiwan, and Japan. So we're in a group of less threat because of a smaller tsunami wave, but areas such as a lot of South America and much of the South Pacific, they could see some higher potential tsunami waves. So it's still a wait-and-see situation. But again, 8.0 revised, or excuse me, 8.1 revised from 8.0. It happened at around 9:30 this morning, with the potential, if any, tsunami waves should arrive, will be around the 4:30 time frame.
That's right. And we'll continue, of course, to track this. Stay in touch with the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. We'll have more in just a bit, but for now, let's send it back over to Howard.
All right, Kelly, Justin, thank you very much. We're going to continue. We'll talk to them a little bit more because we want to bring you more explainers about what exactly this means. Again, 3,700 miles between New Zealand and Hawaii, but it's a lot of open ocean, not much really to get in the way and act as a roadblock, so to speak. And also, if anything were to happen, again, 4:35-ish p.m. this afternoon, and they're talking about a wave, or more so a surge of energy that would be in the range of 0.3 meters. So translated, that would probably be less than a foot. But remember, when you're talking about a tsunami, you're not talking about a singular wave of a half a foot or a foot that washes up and leaves. It's a continuous surge of water that continues to back up upon itself, and thus it creates a whole lot of energy. And so even if it's only a foot or so, it could have a lot of different dynamics with the surge of the water. In fact, I remember the last time we did something like this, Hilo Bay, which is kind of secluded from the actual ocean, even within the bay itself in Hilo, there were all these strange movements of water, and that's something that you could expect. As a result of that, we want to keep our eye on all the local docks. We want to go to Manola Morales. He's standing by live down at the Alawai Yacht Harbor. Of course, boat owners, they're some of the first to always be concerned when there's an event like this. Manolo, I imagine it's obviously too early to see anything in the water, but what about the human evaluation down there? Do you notice people trying to take stock and make plans?
Absolutely, Dash. Of course, you know, boaters keeping track of this as soon as they know that there is a tsunami watch. And I was talking to the harbor master earlier about, you know, what is the protocols. And at this point, it's sort of a standby mode. If there is a tsunami warning, then they need to get ready, get their boats out to sea where their boats will be safe there past the area where the waves are breaking. Actually, here with one of the boaters, we have Joe Ganal over here. And I know you've had to take some earlier precautions because you need to fix your boat.
Yeah, we're actually trying to repair my transmission right now, and I'm afraid pulling out to avoid the tsunami is not going to be an option for me.
So you don't think you would be able to fix it by this afternoon?
Highly doubtful.
Okay. Now,
You know any good mechanics?
I wouldn't be the person to ask, but okay, so when you do, like any other boater, when you hear, okay, that a tsunami could be coming, and if it gets here in a few hours, I mean, if you can't get your boat out, what is the next best thing?
Well, the Japan tsunami, I would guess only about a third of the boats in the harbor went out. I had 2 boats then, and I took my other boat out. I left this one in, and it was fine. There was a lot of water going up and down, and the only damage in this harbor was when the water would go down as it bounced, the shock wave bounced and pulled the water out. The water level dropped, and then the boats would get stuck underneath. You know, they'd go down, and the edge of the boat would get stuck underneath the dock, and then when the water came back up. So
and that's where the damage happened, I guess.
Yeah, there's only 2 boats, and it wasn't real significant. But, you know, Kehi, the docks broke loose, and they were all floating around because the water was amazing. I brought my motorboat in, and the amount of water going in and out was just amazing. So, you know, when those docks broke loose in Kehi, everything was just spinning around and banging into each other. And they had major damage there, but it's really minimal at this harbor.
I would imagine, though, it would be an uneasy feeling knowing that you had to leave your boat docked here and a tsunami wave is coming.
What do you do? Right?
There's not much.
It's nature. It's nature. I mean, just do what you can. So I'll put extra lines on, and I'll leave them slack so it has room to go up and down, and that's all I can do.
And do people stay in the boat then?
No.
It's not a good idea to do that.
You know, so again, the Japan tsunami, I took my boat out, so I'm not sure, but I would assume that they're coming in and chasing everybody out. You know, my understanding is they close off the whole low-lying, close to the ocean area and try and get everybody out. That was a big problem last time. All the traffic, everybody got stuck.
Right.
So fortunately, it wasn't worse. Hopefully, we'll just keep our fingers crossed, right?
Definitely, yeah, and hopefully, yeah, nothing really damaging comes this way. And I don't know, are there other protective measures you could use, like those almost like bumpers for the boats to keep?
Well, I have the bumpers. They're always there anyway.
Yeah, okay.
I'm kind of thinking prayer might be a good protective measure at this point.
That's never a bad idea. Yeah. So do you even proceed to try to fix your transmission at this point, or?
Well, we were working on it anyway, and so we're, you know, before I knew there was a tsunami, we were already working on it. So we figure we'll keep going. I mean, there's a possibility we'll get it running, but. You know, the only thing would be if something did happen and say the boat sank and I collected insurance, then I'd be really mad at all the work I put in on the transmission.
if you get it fixed, though, you would head out.
I'd head out, yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Better safe than sorry.
And how scary is it to head out when a tsunami is coming? Is that
you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. And once you get outside, you wouldn't even notice it going by you. It's just like a ripple in the water. I'm not a scientist, but the way I understand it is it's a shock wave going through the water. It hits the shore, then it bounces back. And when it bounces back, it pulls water with it. And then it's when that water rolls back in, that's the tidal wave. You know, it's like the tide goes way out and then the tide comes back in. There's just a lot of massive water. If you have a bay like Hilo, that water hits the bay and gets squeezed in and comes into a big wave. So here it would just be like a big tide going in and out. But I mean, if it was bad enough, it could wipe out the harbor.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be like the last one and it won't.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, nothing, anything.
No serious damage to
anybody.
anybody, I hope.
Okay. Joe, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Hope you get your transmission fixed.
Yeah, me
one
too.
way or the other, right?
But get out of the harbor before it gets here.
Yeah, right on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And that is it from the LOI Boat Harbor. So, like I said, yeah, if the warning level does or alert does come, then the harbor master is recommending for people to take their boats out to sea. Dash, over to you.
All righty, Manolo, thank you very much. Very good sense of humor, certainly, that gentleman has, like many boaters. You pretty much take what the ocean gives you, and we'll continue to check in with Manolo. And again, we are in touch with the county mayors, the governor, HIEMA, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. But right now, we want to go to Ed Teixeira, who is certainly, he understands what these emergencies are like. He's retired vice director of the State Civil Defense Department. First of all, Ed, thank you for joining us this afternoon. You've been through so many of these events. When you see something like this come up, what is the first thing that you think about, and what are the first dominoes that need to happen from the states to the counties to all the different organizations that respond? How does it kind of flow?
Well, thank you, Howard. Good to hear from you again, and it's too bad it's going to be under these conditions. But to answer your question, it's anticipating requirements. Another way of saying that is planning. You know, we have developed procedures in the state and the counties over the years, particularly for the tsunami hazard that can affect Hawaii either from a local earthquake that's large enough or from a distant earthquake that causes the scenario that we see today. So, you know, the words I'd like to use is what if. You got to be thinking ahead. I'm sure the emergency managers, civil defenders in the state right now are in touch, probably with the phone or even by VTC with the Tsunami Warning Center. That's where all the attention is, those scientists and how they are measuring, how they are looking at the situation, because the clock is ticking. You know, if you have the earliest wave arrival at 4:35 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and then a policy was, when I left the state and counties, the county of Hawaii, was that you would have to, if there was a damaging wave coming to Hawaii, and then what we would require to evacuate our low-lying areas, our coastal areas, is 3 hours to evacuate. So which means 4:35, you back up the clock to 1:35, so that's when the call has got to be made. Now, in the past, there were times where we've seen earthquakes that were large enough to cause a damaging tsunami in Hawaii that we've just kind of crept into that 3-hour window, but not by very much. So I think you know, people are in government and elsewhere, and the private industry are just wondering, you know, what's the call going to be, because the clock is ticking. It's now after 12, so we're about a little more than an hour away of a decision to make for a warning. So that's what I would say. This just advanced planning, anticipating requirements, and if you live or work in a tsunami evacuation area, then just have a plan. How are you going to evacuate? Either vertically, if it's appropriate, or are you going to walk out, or if you have to drive out? And there's so many things, you know, families got to be thinking about, business owners have to be thinking about. And above all, I think it was brought on before by Justin and Kelly, is there's no time to panic. You got to remain calm. You just got to have a plan. There is a lot of time. You know, 4+ hours is a lot of time for us to do what we need to do. Unfortunately for that proton in the LOI, he's got a particular problem.
He does, and we should reiterate, by the way, that the Coast Guard has yet to make any call, but it will be the Coast Guard that makes a call if they say that boaters should head out to sea. Everybody naturally thinks about the most congested or dense zones, hotels, Waikiki, Ka'anapali, Maui, for example. Obviously, our tourist load right now is much smaller than it normally would be as a result of the pandemic. But all these, whether it be Mufi Hanneman with HLTA or all the other organizations, they have very simple plans. It's actually not that difficult for them because, as you say, for them, any evacuation, if necessary, would simply be vertically.
Absolutely, Howard. Absolutely. But my thoughts are also on areas around the state that our roadways are in tsunami evacuation zones. So all of our police departments across the entire state, along with their public works, in conjunction with their mayors making the right decisions, with the cooperation of state and federal governments, all have plans that when the time comes and they have to shut down certain roadways to make sure everybody is out of the evacuation zones, can pose also a particular problem. So I just wanted to add that one particular point, that you have these very, very congested areas, as you pointed out, but there are also some areas that not necessarily congested, but there are roadways that go along the coast, major arteries that can pose a problem for our public to be thinking about. You know, how are you going to get from one place to the other, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you consider the North Shore and the eastern side, for example, from Turtle Bay all the way to Kaneohe, you have a lot of choke points on that singular highway that wraps around the island, and thus that 3-hour notification is so critical. I want to talk about experience. As you mentioned, you left the county and the state a while back, but with every singular event, whether it be an earthquake, whether it be a tsunami, whether it be a hurricane, even the false missile alert from a couple of years ago, how much information is gleaned and learned with every event, and how much better should the expectations be to respond to this or any other type of an emergency?
You know, Howard, for every event, every crisis that the state and county and even federal government goes through, and you name the hazard, and for example, even if the watch is downgraded, let's say it is downgraded, it is still an event. And after an event, after a crisis like this, all these government agencies have to do what we call an after-action review. As you know, whether it goes into a warning and it does pose a disaster, or if it's called off, if things are canceled, if the watch is canceled, for example, and we all should be hoping, keeping our fingers crossed. And I like what was said earlier. There's no harm in praying about it, praying for it, right?
Yeah,
I did that a lot. To tell you the truth. And but you got to do an after-action review to see what did we do right. What about our plans? You know, did our plans work? What needs to be fixed? What about our messaging to the public? So important. You know, did we do all the right things? So what about language access? That's one of the things we learned back when we had the earthquake in 2006, which I relive occasionally, you know, and about how are we going to get the word out to people? Is it timely? Is it in other languages other than English, for example? So this is just so much, so complex,
yeah,
very complex.
A lot of layers,
so many areas
indeed.
You got to think about now.
Yeah, there's so many layers, and I don't want to cut you off, and I apologize for doing so, but I want to get back to Kelly and Justin because they just told me we have an alert and an update. We'll get back to you as necessary, Ed Teixeira. Thank you, but quickly to Kelly and Jess.
Yeah, we have some updated information. This is bulletin number 4. Kelly with the good news.
Yes, the good news is the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, they just put out their update. The tsunami watch for the islands has just been canceled. So again, breaking news, we are no longer under that tsunami watch. Now, taking a look again, this just came out from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. But actually, I don't know if we're ready for the interview. We actually do have someone with the Laura Kong with the Tsunami Information Center. Are we ready for that interview? We might be able to get her on and we can get the latest. Okay, perfect. So let's pull her right up. Good morning, Laura.
Oh, good morning or good afternoon.
Okay, yeah. Oh, afternoon now. Sorry, I've been here since 3 a.m. Okay, again, breaking news. The tsunami watch has just been dropped. Give us the latest. Why was this updated? What information did we find?
Sure. I think as of 12:20, which is a couple minutes ago, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has canceled the tsunami watch for the state of Hawaii. And basically, you know, the background is we were in a watch because the size of the earthquake was fairly large, and it was potentially a concern to have to evacuate to the state of Hawaii. But what we did afterwards was we are waited for confirmation of an actual wave being generated. So we would look to instruments close by in Tonga, in American Samoa. And as you saw with the message, the reading in Nuku'alofa, which is the capital of Tonga, had a 0.2 feet. So you might say it's very, very small tsunami. And the reason we expected that there would not have been a large wave heading towards Hawaii. Hawaii is basically because the earthquake in this area was actually oriented north-south, and the physics just says that all the energy, or most of the energy, goes for a north-south oriented earthquake. It goes to the east and west. And Hawaii, we're in the north, so most of the energy was directed not at us. So we did not expect a very large tsunami, if any.
Okay, that's such good information. Thank you. I do want to follow up with another question for you. I mean, we're very, of course, happy that we're not going to be dealing with a tsunami. But for our folks at home, looking to the future, whenever we have a tsunami or a large earthquake, people want to know maybe the size that could generate a tsunami. So could you give us a range or maybe even a minimum magnitude with an earthquake that is over the ocean that you would say, okay, we're in the tsunami danger zone? Okay,
so let's just talk a little bit about Hawaii. So we have some pretty large earthquakes on the Big Island associated with the volcano, and so if we had an earthquake off of Kilauea, for example, PTWC would be issuing a urgent local tsunami warning, potentially at least for the Big Island and Maui, and potentially for the state. Those earthquakes can be as small as magnitude 6.9, so much smaller for a local tsunami. If we're looking at a tsunami like hit Japan, the 10th anniversary is next week, that was a magnitude 8.9. The magnitude of the earthquake, if you remember, in 2004 in Indonesia was a magnitude 9.1. So those are the sizes of earthquakes, magnitudes in the high 8s, low 9s, that are going to be the ones that are most dangerous for the state of Hawaii when they come from afar. Okay.
And that makes total sense. That being said, we have had tsunamis, with a magnitude 7.9. There was one in 1868, and then 1946, the one that really did a toll in Hilo, that was a magnitude 8.6. Would it be fair, just for my education and my knowledge, to say if a tsunami was generated from the Big Island, from a quake there, the danger zone, just being very general, would be a magnitude 6 and above, just to be on the safe side? And for Pacific, it would be a magnitude, would you say 7 or 8 that you would feel comfortable with, just to get us in the danger zone?
Yeah, sure. Locally, our threshold is a magnitude 6.9.
Okay, got it.
So not 6.0, 6.9, because we have had local tsunamis that have been generated by earthquakes as small as 6.9.
Got it.
For earthquakes that are in Chile or in Japan or in Alaska, generally our warnings are about 7.5. Okay. But anything above a magnitude 7, we're going to be concerned with for the state of Hawaii. And one of the reasons is because we're really close. So if you look at the Aleutians, you can place an earthquake that's only about 4.5 hours from Hawaii. So if you think, gosh, if this earthquake happens at 3 in the morning, no one's awake, and by the time everyone gets awake, that's when the wave is going to hit. So we want to make sure we're prepared. So we're going to put our thresholds to be very cautious, a little lower, so we make sure we have enough time.
Can we talk about this particular earthquake today? Because, it's kind of semi-common to see the ring of fire around Japan and Russia and Alaska, and even through Canada. And even, looking at the earthquake map right now, there was a few earthquakes within the last 24 hours for even California and Nevada. Earthquakes that come from the South Pacific. Could you explain a little bit of the dynamics of what's going on at the surface, the crust of the Earth, that's causing these earthquakes that may be different or may be the same versus Chile or Japan or Russia?
So, as you know, the Pacific Ring of Fire is basically defined as a ring of active earthquakes or active seismicity and volcanoes around the Pacific. And that's because what we have are plates subducting beneath one another along subduction zones. Subduction zones are ocean trenches. Chile is one, Alaska and the Aleutian Trench, Kamchatka down in northwest Japan, the Philippines, and even Guam and American Samoa is along the northern part of the Tonga Trench. So anywhere we have active subduction, we can have large earthquakes. And if we have large earthquakes that are shallow enough underneath the water, we can get a tsunami. It turns out that in the South Pacific, in the area of Tonga and the Solomons and Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea, those earthquakes and those subduction zones are generate earthquakes that have kind of been smaller than earthquakes in other locations. And when they're smaller, they're less likely to cause impact to Hawaii.
Got it. Thank you so much for that explanation. I feel like I learned a lot. So wrapping up with what I really wanted to take away for the future. For the Big Island, the danger zone, magnitude 6.9. For the Pacific as a whole, danger zone for tsunami starts at 7.0. The thing is, if we get a tsunami from the Big Island, the travel time is going to be like almost instantaneous.
Right. For something like this, we would have plenty of time to prepare with it being so far away, but something, again, much closer to home wouldn't get so lucky. But again, thank you so much to Laura Kong for joining us this morning. She is the director of the International Tsunami Information Center, and of course, giving us the information at right after the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center released the breaking news. Again, Hawaii no longer under that tsunami watch. Tsunami watch has been canceled.
I think she was our good luck charm because right before she came on, the tsunami watch got
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Sure.
Or afternoon now.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Howard, back over to you.
All right, Kelly, Justin, thank you very much. I also want to say mahalo to Ed Teixeira, who is joining us, the former Vice Director of the State Civil Defense Department. What he talked about is ultimately it's all about preparation. And he talked about with every event, you want to have a post-mortem, if you will. Go back. Did we do the right things? Did we take the right steps? Even though this particular event didn't get drawn out to the point where there was a critical emergency or concern, well, there was concern, not an emergency, but it'll be interesting to see. Again, we will continue to follow up with this story today. By no means is this story over for us. We have a new mayor in Rick Blangiardi. So you want to see how all these different new pieces of the state's administration and organization, how they all functioned with one another, and that's something that we will be doing throughout the day. So again, the headline, Hawaii no longer under any type of tsunami warning or watch. It's a good day to be here in the islands. The weather is actually pretty good too, right guys? The winds and the rain, that's another story. It'll probably be back tomorrow and for the weekend, but it's a beautiful day. Just be careful wherever you go and whatever you do. And be sure to join us throughout the day. Of course, our first full newscast, KHON2 News at 4 with Justin Cruz. I'll be back here this evening. Joe Moore, of course, at 6 o'clock. And KHON2 online all the time to keep you up to date. For all of us here at KHON2, thanks for watching. We now take you back to our regularly scheduled programming.